Hey guys, greetings from mainland China. Thanks for tuning into this video. In this video, I'm just gonna chat with you all because I've had plenty of people ask me, and I know a lot of you who haven't asked are wondering, why do I choose to stay in China? It's a big world. I've got plenty of options of places where I could go. And of course, I could always go right back home to the US. So why do I choose to stay here in China? Well, I'm going to give you 5 reasons why I choose to do that. And by watching this video, you'll get to know me a little bit better, and it's a good way for me to connect with you guys, my viewers, my subscribers, my supporters. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump into it, okay? Now, these are in no particular order of importance. They're just randomly listed, okay? So let's start with number 1, okay? My business partner is here in China, and my business partner is a Chinese guy. It's a guy that I've known for well over a decade. He's a very close friend of mine. We have a great relationship. I think the world of the guy. And we've got a pretty good thing going. So if I were to leave here right now, it would really hurt our business operations. And I'm just not willing to do that to him. Of course, I get benefit from it too. I'm making some money and I'm having fun in the process. I'm working with a guy that I get along well with, a guy that I like, a guy that I respect, a guy that I have a lot of fun with. And that alone is a lot more than a lot of people can say. A lot of people dread their job. Whether publicly or privately, they despise their boss. For me, that's not the case. So that is one very important reason why I'm staying here. And the second reason why I'm staying here is because my girlfriend is here. And yeah, sure, I could whisk her away to some foreign country. I could take her back home. But the circumstances of the relationship just aren't really that simple. That option is not really feasible right now. Now, that doesn't mean down the road that couldn't happen. There's actually a good chance that will happen. But right now, it's just not a realistic option. Now, I'll be honest with you. If it wasn't for this, if it wasn't for her, I actually wouldn't be here right now because, without getting too much into the past and revisiting a bunch of unpleasant memories, the whole pandemic thing that happened, I'm sure you guys still remember that. That was an extremely unpleasant time for me to be here in China. I know that no matter where you were in the world, everybody had, their own problems. Every place had its own issues. It wasn't easy for anybody. But I do feel that for me in particular, being a quote unquote foreigner here in China, I do believe that my experience was probably harder than the average bear. I could literally write a book about the things that I went through, the treatment that I received. I was treated like the plague simply because I am a foreigner here in China. The discrimination that I faced, not being allowed to enter certain establishments, being insulted regularly. I mean, one time my girlfriend got into an accident and I needed to go stay with her in the hospital, but they wouldn't let me in because I didn't have a recent COVID test. And the hospital obviously was doing COVID testing, but I waited in line and they told me they couldn't test me because I was a foreigner. So after a 2-hour runaround, a lot of heated arguments, they finally told me I could go to the emergency fever clinic to get tested. So yeah, that's right. The only option they gave me to get a COVID test was to send me to the fever ward where people were already experiencing symptoms, fever, and some of them may have actually had the virus, but that's where they sent me to go get tested. I couldn't get tested with the regular people. I had to go into the fever ward. And guys, to me, that's just, it crossed a line. That was one of many times that a line was crossed. But I was so over it. I was ready to be gone. I was out of here. But I wasn't going to leave my girl. So I put up with all that for her. And yes, things are much better right now. I don't have to put up with that kind of stuff anymore. But the reality is the things that I experienced during that time can never, never be forgotten. And of course, it has altered my perception of this country as well. Okay, the third reason why I choose to stay in China is because if you look at a map, okay, first look at the US and look at the travel options. Domestically, yeah, there's a lot of states you could go to, but if you want to go visit a foreign country, you've got Canada to the north, and then we've got Mexico to our southern border, and if you want to go down to South America, there's a whole hell of a lot of countries down there, but it's pretty damn far away. It's not that easy to get down there. And now look at a map of China and take a look at the eastern seaboard, the eastern coast of China, and look at all the different countries. Directly to the east, you've got Japan, South Korea, you've got Mongolia up here. You head further south, you've got Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. You've just got so many really great travel options, and China is a great base for travel, especially if you're interested in Asian cultures as I am. It's a fantastic place to be. Number one, the location is great. Number two, it's a pretty comfortable base. In China, they've got a lot of airports, they've got a lot of train stations. The climate, at least in my region, has 4 distinct seasons, so you can enjoy different types of weather. Crime is relatively low, so you generally don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. And in terms of getting things that you need, you can pretty much order anything you need from the internet in China. You can go to Taobao or Jingdong, and I mean, whether it's anything from deodorant to food to ingredients, shaving supplies, you can pretty much get anything you need, and you order it and it gets to your door surprisingly quickly. Plus, from my perspective as an American living here in China, the prices are very reasonable. I can have good quality meals for a fraction of the price as I would get them back home. Things like haircuts, transportation costs, rent and bills, it's all very, very inexpensive compared to America. So that's why it's a great base for travel, which leads us into reason number 4, and that is the time I have invested in China, particularly in learning the language, but also in learning the culture, understanding how things operate here. I've literally put years into learning this. And if I were to just leave China and move somewhere else, well, Taiwan would be an exception. But if I were to move to a different country and have to basically start from square one, it's just such a long road. I'm not a particularly good student, especially when it comes to learning foreign languages. But just because I've stuck with Chinese for so long, I've gotten pretty decent at it. And I can navigate China quite easily, quite conveniently. Yeah, so just to move away from here and start from square one, it's just such a long, hard journey that I'm not really keen on doing, especially at this point in my life. That doesn't mean that I'm going to stay here forever, and that doesn't mean that I'm not someday possibly willing to accept that kind of challenge. But I just mean for the time being, I've just invested too much time and energy into China to just suddenly walk away. And then reason number 5, the last one for this video of why I choose to stay in China. And this is going to sound like a very simple reason, but it's simply this. I like living overseas. For me, living overseas keeps things exciting. And what it really comes down to, if you get to the essence of it, is that I love travel. And while I'm living overseas, essentially, even though I'm living here in China, I'm essentially, from one perspective, I'm traveling constantly because I'm living overseas, which is kind of like a form of traveling. Yeah, it's not backpacking around and stuff, but every day is a new challenge. I'm exposed to new things. I've got the challenge of trying to improve my language abilities. And I just have a tendency to get bored back at home. And so if I wasn't living in China, I would probably be living somewhere else. I actually did used to live in Japan as well. So that's pretty much going to wrap it up. Those are 5 reasons why I choose to stay here. And there are other reasons too, but I would say these are the 5 main ones that come to mind. So I hope that from watching this, you feel like you got to know me a little bit better. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comment section below. I generally try to respond to everybody. And also, I would be remiss to not mention that if you would like to support this channel, there are a few ways that you can do it. The biggest things that you can do are just liking the video, dropping a comment, and subscribing to the channel. Those are 3 simple, just very quick and easy things that you could do that would help me out a lot. Now, if you want to take the next step in supporting the channel, sharing this video out is a great way to do it. And if you would like to financially support the channel, which to some extent I do rely on my viewers and supporters here to help me do what I'm doing, because these trips that I take, trust me guys, they are not cheap. And if I could tally up all my tabs, I've put in quite a bit of money into YouTube, and I definitely am not breaking even. And I'm not complaining, don't get me wrong, because I love doing this and I will continue to do this. But your support really does mean a lot to me. And I'm not just saying empty words. It really does, because it's not necessarily just the amount financially that you contribute. It's the simple act of what you're doing. Your contribution is a way of you telling me, hey, I appreciate the content you're creating and producing and sharing with us. I enjoy it and I want to support you. And that is such a kind gesture, because These contributions that I get are usually from complete strangers. Of course, we probably feel like we're getting to know each other a bit through these videos, and that's a great thing. But it's just so incredibly nice of you all, and I really do thank you for that. If you did want to contribute that way, there are a few ways to do it. You could check me out on Patreon. You could go to buymeacoffee.com, or you could just leave a super thanks directly here on the YouTube platform. All links for this will be in the video description below. So that's going to wrap things up for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we will catch you all in the next one. 下次再见.